you think of this idea of defunding the police?
I actually don't think it's far enough.
To end policing as we know it.
Activists and some city officials.
Calls to defund are only growing louder.
Overnight, 800,000 men and women who protect their communities every single day went from public servants to public enemies. As politicians and the media demonized each and every one of us. Brothers and sisters, this is a dangerous time for law enforcement, and it's created by people who are more interested in the problem than they are any solutions.
Over the past 2 years, the media, politicians, activist groups, and others have done their very best to crumble us. And yet we stand.
Never has it been harder to be a police officer in this country, which means it's never been harder to be a union leader and be a leader within the FOP. We're going to take our voice back. We're going to become the national voice for law enforcement that we so desperately needed.
So when it comes to who's speaking on behalf of law enforcement, it's hands down.
This is the Speak On It podcast with K-Sam. What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to another episode of the Speak On It podcast with K-Sam. Here on the Speak On It podcast, I have a motto. The motto is, we're not trying to change the entire world, but change the heart of one person at a time. Again, ladies and gentlemen, thank y'all for tuning in to another episode here with your boy. I have another good one for y'all, and I think it's a conversation that is needed. So let's dive right into it. Give kudos to that soundbite that I started the episode with. That was from the Fraternal Order of Policing Instagram page. So I thought that was a good way to bring in this intro to this episode, which is titled The Human Element. The Human Element. But as always, before I jump right into this episode, I want to go over the current statistics for officers shot in the line of duty, and then more so the statistics for first responder suicides for the year. So let's start with the suicides. As of September 2023, you still have 3 dispatchers that committed suicide, 6 emergency medical personnel, so your paramedics, your ambulance personnel, 58 police officers, which 2 of those recently were Dallas police officers, and 14 firefighters. Now, compare that to last month, August 2023, you still had the 3 dispatchers, the 6 EMT personnel, you had 55 police officers, and 13 firefighters. And then let's get into these numbers, which is concerning, which brings me to this episode. So for the first 9 months of the year, we have had a total of 272 police officers shot in the line of duty. 272. With that 272, 2 of those recently were involving police officers from Lafayette Police Department, my old agency, in Louisiana. And last I heard, I think I saw on social media, the second officer who remained in the hospital has finally been released, and now she is recovering in the comfort of her home. But before I move on from that, man, just seeing the love and support, the family bonding of the police department, and the support from the community around. They've done donations and meal trains and stuff, man. It was beautiful to see that community and those officers rally together and rally behind each other in this time. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think the last officer that was actually shot at Lafayette Police Department was Officer Middlebrook, if I'm not mistaken. Don't quote me on that. But moving along, so first 9 months of the year, you have 34 police officers that were killed in the line of duty, and you have 101 of them were shot in 83 separate ambush-style attacks. 83 separate ambush-style attacks. And actually, I think I saw one on Instagram. I think that was in New York. Let me see. Let me check. I think I have it pulled up. But anyway, I think it was in New York where you have these officers. No, LAPD. You have these officers just patrolling in broad daylight, and this guy started shooting at their patrol cars and ran away. Then it wasn't really a foot pursuit, because by the time they was able to get out the vehicle, he was already gone. But they followed the direction he was running, and they located his firearm that he dropped on the ground. And then I guess several blocks away, officers found him still matching his description. Then they give him verbal commands, and then he squares up to fight him. Like, it's crazy. They had to taser him and all kind of stuff. So that's what law enforcement are dealing with in today's society, which is just wild to me that's what we're dealing with. So for my people that love statistics and stuff, in 2020, so this time in 2020, we already have 25% more officers shot in the line of duty that we had in this time in 2020. And this time in 2021, we are up plus 24%. So as you see, the numbers are steadily increasing year by year, which is concerning to me. And it should be concerning to everybody. But going into this episode, talking about the human element, man, it's been heavy on my heart with just a bunch of different recent incidences that's been involving law enforcement. And it just came to me that society is trying to pull the human element out of this job. Some may ask, K-Sam, what you mean? Well, they want to take the emotional connection out of law enforcement. They want to take the human aspect out of law enforcement. Nobody wants to look at us as human, as individuals, and they want to look at us as robots, as perfect people, as people who makes no mistakes, as individuals who shouldn't do no wrong. And by far, that's not what this should be turning out to be. We are human. We put on our pants the same way everybody else do. We put on our shirt the same way everybody else do. We drive the cars the same way everybody else do. And that's what we must realize. This is a job, man. Like, this is a noble profession, but at the end of the day, it is a job. You are replaceable. And it's been shown multiple times across the country that a police officer is replaceable. And where I think that officers find themselves in bad situations is when they cannot connect themselves away from the job. Like, when they identify who they are, the first thing they identify themselves is as a police officer. That's equivalent to somebody that works at McDonald's, and you introduce yourself to them, and the first thing they say, "Yeah, man, what's up, man? I'm a cook from McDonald's. What's up?" Yeah, I cooked your quarter pounder the other day. Like, but that's not who you are. That's just a job, Or, what's up, man? I work at assistant manager at Dollar Tree. But who are you? Like, what is your name and who are you? I didn't ask you what your job was. I asked, who are you? So that's you start seeing that in law enforcement, especially people who always want to do this, like for their whole lives, or people that's been doing it for a long time. We get stuck and we identify ourselves as this job, and you got to realize, man, this is a job. Like me, not to my own home, but I think I do a pretty good job of leaving work at work, home at home. And when I'm at work, yeah, cool, I'm a police officer. Officer Sam, what's happening with you, baby? But when I'm off, man, I don't want to talk about police stuff. I honestly like, I don't want to think about work stuff. I'll deal with work stuff when I get to work. Unless it's obviously a major incident that's going on, then of course. But man, don't come call me talking about something for work on my off day. Like, I'll deal with that later. Hey, it's funny because you have some officers. Let somebody from work call them about something while they off. Man, that's an hour overtime. And you buzz my phone, you can get this bill for an hour overtime. Man, don't call me on my off day about some work stuff, especially some stuff that could wait. Man, email me. Let me deal with you on the email. But so as you heard in the video, the media, politicians, activist groups, and others been trying their best for the last several years to break down law enforcement. We had the defund the police movement, which worked in some states. You have some people, some activist groups calling law enforcement a gang. Then I asked myself, like, what are they trying to take away from this profession? What are their agendas? Black Lives Matter, where they been? I haven't heard nobody shout, chant, talk, sing, nothing about Black Lives Matter. And the only reason why I'm using Black Lives Matter is because when all this stuff was happening, they were the most vocal ones. So it's like, because no big controversial incident involving law enforcement and a person of color hasn't happened that was big enough to me. I ain't gonna say hasn't happened, because stuff happens daily. It's just all about what could spark the outrage and get people moving that matters to these groups, to the media and stuff. But it's like, where are they at? What are they doing? Are they still working to show that Black Lives Matter? Or are they in the black community trying to get blacks to rally together to build stronger communities and stop getting people and stop like having people against each other? Like, where are Black Lives Matter? Where are the people that supported Black Lives Matter when it was easy to type that hashtag on your Instagram or your Facebook? What are they doing? That's my question. And here's why I never supported stuff like that. And before y'all get on my case, yes, Black Lives Matter, all lives matter, blue lives matter. We ain't talking about that right now. But what we're talking about is, the reason why I didn't support this is because if you're not doing work to try to make a change and make things better when the iron is not hot, because you know the saying, strike while the iron is hot. So if you're not doing nothing to make society a better place, the world a better place to live in while the iron is not hot, then don't come swinging while the iron is hot and trying to get you a piece of that iron, because you obviously just doing it for the wrong reasons. So one of my mottos I live by is be the change by action and not just by words, which is why I started this podcast. So this is my way of trying to fix the bridge that has been broken or damaged between the community and law enforcement. And not even just talking about black community, because you have people in every race that dislike the police or misunderstand the police or misunderstand the profession. And this is my way of doing it by action, is coming here and trying to educate y'all on what we do, why we do what we do, why something may have happened, because I can't give an answer for something that happened across the country or even next to me, because I wasn't there. And every officer has to be able to answer for their actions. And that's kind of like the adult responsibility of this job, and every job. But, more so police officers, you have so much power. You have just the only profession that could take away somebody's civil liberties by arresting them, taking away their freedom of movement. Like, we have so much power that society gives us, and I can see why society gets mad when they see bad things happen in law enforcement. It's like, how are we supposed to trust y'all when y'all doing stuff like this? I give an example. My homeboy sent me a video on Instagram. Again, I forgot what city, but broad daylight, you see this officer talking to a female, full uniform, fully marked patrol car. Actually, I'm gonna post it on my Instagram, on my Speak on the Podcast Instagram. But full uniform, fully marked patrol car, and somebody records him on a cell phone, broad daylight. Looks like he was making out with the chick, kissing the chick, and then he gets in the back seat with her and closes the door. So, like, the first question that popped up to me, I asked my homeboy, I said, "But how are they gonna get out? Like, unless he didn't close the door tight." So then now that cell phone video is going viral. He's suspended because, like, what are you doing? Like, broad daylight in the parking lot, and you getting in the back of your patrol car with a female in full uniform, and then you ask yourself, how can somebody be trusted when you're doing stuff like this? Like, this is why we are having the issues that we're having. And again, we're human. Cops do stupid stuff, believe it or not. But it's like we are shooting ourselves in the foot, and it's just it doesn't help our situation as law enforcement officers. But, you know, the reality of it is police officers deal with people on their like bad or worse days in most cases. You could go from a simple traffic stop. If a cop stops somebody, especially if they get a ticket, that could ruin your day. So just by you getting stopped could put you in a bad mood. So now I'm dealing with you on a bad day. Now I done made your day bad for something you done. And you know, when we get calls to these domestic calls, or just even medical calls, because we respond with fire department on medical calls, because, you know, firemen have to have heroes also. Shout out to all my firefighters out there. But, you know, when we go to these medical calls, you know, we respond to CPR calls or unconscious calls or any, you know, certain medical calls where somebody is in a crisis, somebody is having a bad day, and when they think about who and what law enforcement has been represented as over the past couple of years, people don't want to deal with us. People just rather not fool with us, and I can't fault them for that. But every time I put on my uniform, my goal is to leave a better impression on somebody as a police officer than they probably had with the last officer. And if I could do that, again, goes back to my motto, change the heart of one person at a time. And if I could do that, then I know I've done my job. And it's crazy because working here in the agency I work at now, I had to switch up my style of policing and my thought process. Working in Louisiana, high crime, you know, 30 plus homicides a year, tons of shootings and stuff like that. Like, I call that real police work. So you didn't really it wasn't, back when I was there, nobody wasn't really talking about community policing. You know, it was more so like we was out there being crime fighters, legit crime fighters, versus community police officers. Here, we don't have that type of crime where we are crime fighters, but I had to shift my focus into being a community police officer and go more into the serve of it than the protect of it. So the protect of it is the crime fighting, trying to get these bad guys off the streets who's committing these violent crimes, versus out here now I'm kind of more in the serve of it, where we get calls for we get so many just nonsense calls. It's crazy. When I say nonsense, like calls that we shouldn't even be going to. So we get so many, and they're about equally stand out. So that's why struggling to try to find an example without making it sound too hideous. But man, we get these type of calls, and yeah, even though it's like, man, this is not a police matter, the community expect us to go out there and still handle the call because, hey, I called you for help. Now y'all need to go and fix this problem. Which, okay, rightfully so. Like that's what we here for. But nevertheless, that's all in the human element of the job. And when you could put some human perspective, some feelings into the job and show people that you care versus like, I don't care about your problem. Why are you calling me for this? Who cares? Hey, handle your 15-year-old and stop calling the police. Like that's not our job to come over here because your 15-year-old don't listen to you. That's the type of stuff we get. There was a call last week, lady arguing with her 15-year-old, and she takes herself and her other young kid and go hides in the closet in her house. Like she go hides in her own house from her 15-year-old because they were arguing. Ladies and gentlemen, that's a whole nother episode. But so you have these politicians and activist groups that want to take this human aspect out of the job. Discretion. It's like they want us to be robots. I was having a conversation with somebody at the gas station, and they made a comment that law enforcement should be the same across the board. And I'm pretty sure I had this conversation on one of my recent episodes. But they think law enforcement should be the same across the board. And I explained to them that that's impossible because the way I police in Louisiana, aggressive, crime-fighting style police, I cannot do that in the city that I work in now. These people would run me right back to Louisiana because that's too aggressive. It's not needed over here. And then if I go police like I do out here in Louisiana, I'll get ran over because that's too soft of policing. So the whole just behind this is that you have to adapt to the community that you serving in. And like that's essentially what it is. Like we don't have people running around here with guns and just randomly shooting people, or we don't have these aggravated batteries where people just getting randomly stabbed, or domestics turning into shootings and stabbings, or fights turning into shootings and stabbing. We just don't have that over here. So a hard policing, aggressive style policing, where you kind of have to operate in a zero tolerance, it won't work over here. Another thing they're trying to take away from law enforcement is the discretion. Like, could you imagine if law enforcement as a whole across the country operated in black and white? And they have some officers that do. Let me say that. They have some officers that do. And what I mean by black and white is, hey, the law says X, Y, Z. What you done fits X, Y, Z. The consequences to X, Y, Z is a trip to jail. Or, hey, speeding is speeding. The law doesn't say 5 miles and over is okay. Like, that's just something that was taught, because I give about 7 or 8 miles over. And to me, if you're doing that, then you good, because that's what I do when I'm normally driving. But in reality, speeding is speeding. 1 mile and over, that's speeding over the posted speed limit. So if you take away officers' discretion to give you a verbal warning on the speed or a written warning on your traffic stop and say, hey, the law says, you have to go to jail for this offense, that's the consequences, and you met the elements of this crime, then you going to jail. Or would you prefer us to have some discretion? Because not everybody needs to go to jail, and not everybody needs a traffic citation for being stopped. Sometimes just them being stopped is a lesson within itself to correct that driving behavior. Just them coming into contact with law enforcement during this verbal argument is good enough to stop whatever is going on in this household. Just a conversation, educational conversation with a child, not as a scare tactic, but to explain to them, hey, if you continue to go down this road with your attitude and your behavior, here's where you may end up. You may see me more often than what you really want to. That's all the human element of the job. Man, law enforcement wears so many hats. I always tell people, I was like, yeah, I got a hat rack in my unit. And they was like, a hat rack? I was like, yeah, because one minute I have to be a marriage counselor, so I got to grab that hat. Then, the next minute I have to be a social worker, a mental health worker, so I got to grab that hat. Then the next minute I got to actually be a police officer and enforce the law, so I got to grab that hat. So you gotta have that human element in this job to sympathize with people, to understand people's problem, even though you may have never been through it, but more than likely you've seen it enough on this job to where you know how to help them navigate. Because some people can't figure out stuff on their own, and that's okay. But as a police officer, we have to deal with those things. Another big thing, nobody, and I said this before on episodes, but the mental health of officers is so big, because look at the number. 58 officers within the first 9 years committed suicide. 58 police officers. People that goes out to deal with the worst of the worst, the hardened criminals, and there to help other people figure out their problems, but then are dealing with so much in their own life to where they cannot help themselves. They cannot make the call out for help. So they feel the only way to end their problems is by taking their own life away. It's said that first responders are more than likely to die in their own hands than in the hands of a criminal on the street. What that means, Kendall? First responders are more than likely to commit suicide than to be killed in the line of duty, and that's pretty accurate. So I know our department is being proactive on seeking programs and stuff like that for our mental health of officers and stuff. But I still just feel that we need some type of, state law program, something to where we as first responders are having these conversations more often. And, law enforcement don't like the word mandate, but something needs to happen to where we are going sit down with whoever, man. It could be somebody from the peer support, but it needs to be somebody that you build a relationship and trust and have these conversations and deep conversations, not just, hey, how you doing? But let's dig deep. How's your marriage? We got to get personal, because that's the situations that's killing our first responders, are the deep personal situations. Nobody's killing themselves. I'm saying this, I'm stepping out on a limb right here, but nobody's killing themselves because the job is stressful. Is more than likely the underlying problems is the home life, is the life outside of work, or something that happened at work that's affecting their personal life, and they cannot navigate the waters to separate it. I was involved in an incident, and besides the initial checkups and mental health stuff and hey, how you doing, never heard nothing from it. Nobody never reached out and be like, hey, like, you still good? Like, just checking in on you. But I thought about that, and I reached out to some of the officers that I was involved in that with, and was like, hey, look, man, I just thought about it. I know nobody never checked in on us, but how are you still doing? Like, you still good mentally? I know early on, of course, everybody would be like, yeah, but as that time goes, stuff starts to happen. Stuff starts to remind you of that day, that night, that incident. Just little variables. You see something, you hear something, and it could trigger that replay. So it's important, and this goes for co-workers to family members of first responders. Man, we see stuff day in and day out, and you just never know what may be bothering somebody because we have this hard outer shell where I have to be tough. I can't show that this is bothering me, or I can't talk about it. And here's one of the biggest things is when you're involved in these incidences, man, the first thing they tell you is don't talk about it. And I was reading Michael Sugaru's book, and that was one of the big things that triggered his journey that he had, or his battle that he had with want to commit suicide, is they isolated him from his loved ones, from everybody. He couldn't talk about it. And man, truth be told, that's what helped me, is talking about it. You have to talk about it. We are human beings, and we have to get some certain things off our chest. But in this profession is don't talk about it. You got to hold it to yourself. You got to keep it close to your heart. And it's like, well, if I can't talk about it with nobody, then how do I get it out? How do I express myself and let people know, hey, I'm struggling. Like this is really, really bothering me. So stuff like that needs to change. And that all goes into the mental health, man. When you start dealing with stuff like that, now you start having self-doubt. Like, man, did I do something wrong? Or like, what could I have done better? And you start having all these thoughts. You start playing all these scenarios in your head, and then no telling where that may lead. So we have to do better as a society, and giving grace to I'm gonna say first responders, but more so this is targeted to talking about law enforcement. But we have to give grace when there's an opportunity for grace to be given. And what I mean by that is when a honest mistake is made, we have to remember again that we are human beings just doing an extraordinary job. So we're ordinary people doing an extraordinary job that most people don't want to deal with it. Like people tell me all the time, man, I bet it's hard to be a cop in today's world. No, it's not. It's not hard to be a cop. It would be hard if you allow it to be hard, or if you allow people to make it hard for you. But man, this job would not stress me out. I tell you that. Before I let a job stress me out and mess up my home life, I'll walk away and go find me another job. Because again, this is a job, you are very much so replaceable. And this is not your life. Like this is something that pay the bills, give you some benefits. And again, you're doing an extraordinary job. It's a job. Which leads me to my next topic. In a neighboring city, they had a police officer who was doing some traffic enforcement, and she ran a license plate to a Dodge Charger. Now, here's the key for this very specific car. So across the country, you seen a rise in sports cars being stolen. So you have your Dodge Chargers, your Challengers, your Corvettes, all these cars. And I don't know what these criminals are doing, but from what I was told, they have some type of device that could tap into the car's computer system and register their remote or whatever for the car and steal your car. So anyway, so she sees a black Dodge Charger traveling on the roadway, and it had an Arkansas plate on it. Well, when she typed the initials, she typed AZ for Arizona and not AR for Arkansas. So whatever, she gets the read back on her computer, I'm sure, that said, hey, this car doesn't match, stolen car, stolen license plate, whatever. So they do a felony traffic stop. And for people who don't know what a felony traffic stop is, that's when you have multiple cops on this traffic stop. You have guns pointed at the vehicle towards the occupants in the vehicle. And you giving some clear commands. Driver, roll down all the windows. Driver, turn off the engine. Driver, take the keys out with your right hand and throw them out the window. Driver, with your left hand only, open the car. So it should be very specific, clear directions, because these stops are normally done on very serious crimes. So you ain't gonna find a felony traffic stop being done on just a normal traffic stop for failure to use your turn signal. Like, one police officer ain't go or shouldn't, should I say. And all this has variables that changes, but a police officer won't just jump out and point a gun at you and was like, driver, get out the car. You didn't use your turn signal. Get on the ground. That's not how it should go. Let me say that shouldn't go. So felony traffic stop is tense. It's a very high tense situation, because usually dealing with a violent felon, stolen car. So that's, in most cases, are taken in violent crimes, carjackings, whatever. But nowadays, cars just being stolen without even busting windows and stuff. So you have felony stops on those type of situations. So stolen car, that's a felony stop. High speed chase, once the chase comes to an end, that's a felony stop. So they do a felony stop, guns pointed at them. So here's the key behind the situation was a black family that was from Arkansas, that was in the DFW area for an AAU basketball tournament. So the mom's freaking out who was driving, the dad's freaking out. You have a couple kids in the car. So now you have a black family that's getting pulled over by the police with guns pointed at them. They crying, they freaking out. The little kids freaking out. Everybody's trying to give some good, clear directions to ensure nobody don't get hurt. And then while they still investigating and getting people out the car, one of the supervisors come up to the initiating officer and say, hey, this is a mistake. This car is not stolen. This car belongs to them. And then the officer realized she typed AZ instead of AR. So this goes into my whole give grace conversation I just had, my point I just made. So the officer made a genuine mistake. Like, I didn't, what they call fat fingered, hit the wrong number, hit the wrong letter while typing in the license plate. Most cases it's done while you driving behind somebody. So mistakes happen like that all the time. It's just something, you need to be sure that you double check your work. Call dispatch. Hey, can you run this plate? And, I'm getting a stolen return before. So most cases you have time. Like, if people know they're in a stolen car and they see the cops behind them, more than likely they go start running from you in the car before you even have time to initiate your lights. Like, you ain't it's gonna be a given that car is more than likely stolen, because they won't even let you drive normal behind them before they just take off and go. So you have to double check yours. So that was an honest mistake on her part. She explained it to the family. She apologized. They was even able to shake hands and say, like, the dad was like, man, it's all good. I understand. It's a scary moment for my family, my kids. We got guns pointed at us. We just driving. We don't know what we done wrong. Obviously, it's a time during the stop to explain that to him, but the explanation has to come after we secure everybody and make sure everybody is safe. Then we could start explaining and doing deeper investigation. So the officer took full responsibility for her actions, which was the right thing to do. She apologized, multiple times. It was a legit human mistake. And social media, man, social media. So I think I heard this on a sports show talking about social media. Problem with social media is it gave everybody a voice. It gave everybody a chance to be, let's go to sports world. It gave everybody a chance to be a head coach, a general manager, an analyst, a recruiter, a scout, a play caller, because everybody has the opportunity to judge your decision and type it on this platform to say, "Oh, you made a bad call. I would have ran the ball on 4th and inches instead of throwing the ball." But it's like, who are you to criticize these? So people, back to this officer, was, man, she should be fired. They need to sue the police department. She should never be a cop again. And it's like, as society, again, they want police officers to be perfect and don't give grace. The perfect rebuttal I saw for this is, to the people who has never made a typing error when typing a paper or typing an email, shame on them for criticizing, because that's what, like, we are human. Everybody makes errors. You know, you type in a paper, you misspell a word. Like, that's part of life. But again, because we are police officers, yeah, we are held to a higher standard and everything like that. But it's like, we can still, like, we still should have room to make mistakes. Many times, I done walked up to the wrong address. Like, oh, man, I'm sorry. Like, wrong address. I done call people the wrong name. Like, oh, no. Oh, I thought you was such and such. My bad. Not who I'm looking for. So it happens, but you just got to take ownership when that happens. Now, I know, before y'all get started, most cases, police officer mistakes could end in deadly situations. So yeah, we shouldn't just be out here willy-nilly, thinking, oh, it's okay, I got all the freedom to make a mistake, I'm human. No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, when it's a true, legitimate, understandable human mistake, like, society, we need to give grace to these police officers, because already we under such a microscope. It's kind of like, man, I don't know what I should or shouldn't do, because I don't know if this will have me all over social media, all over the news media, or if this is going to land me in prison. But I heard another interview. I need to start wrapping this up. But I heard another interview where someone said that when you so talking about the whole good apple, bad apple, and the good got to suffer for the bad. And here's the point that was made. When you have a police officer, let's say George Floyd, when you have an incident like George Floyd, everybody is mad at law enforcement as a whole across the country over one officer's actions. So now we all getting bashed. We all getting told F12, F you. We all getting disrespected. Everybody is going against us. And I'm saying everybody, I'm using that real loosely. But when you have these high school coaches who's sexually assaulting these students, when you have these doctors that's being bad doctors, these lawyers that's being bad lawyers, these fast food restaurant workers that's spitting in people's drinks and food and stuff like that, nobody goes and bash all the lawyers in the country. Nobody goes out with intentions to go kill all the doctors in the country because they felt that a shooting that a law enforcement done was not justified and was wrong. So now they want to take matters to their own hand and go hunt down cops. That happened in Baton Rouge not long after, I think it was the Alton Sterling incident or the Michael Ferguson incident. The guy came all the way from Oklahoma and literally went and hunted down police officers and killed them. So why, as law enforcement, should we have to bear that, where we have targets on our back? Like I said in the numbers, 272 officers has been shot just this year. For what reason? Because people don't like the cops. People think that that cops are still bad. Yes, they still do. Yeah, yes, absolutely have bad cops out here. But why does somebody who's just out here trying to do an honest job deserve to be killed? Because of what? back to my last episode, nobody want to be the police, because why would I want to do a job to help somebody when they have certain individuals just out here just willing to kill me for no reason? You know, we have active testing for applicants right now, and it's crazy how low the numbers are now. From what I was told, they used to have hundreds of applicants trying to get on with our agency. And I went help with a test the other day, and I think it was like 4 people out of 6 that was supposed to show up. I think another day they only had 1. I heard another agency that usually have hundreds banging down the door to get on with them only had 28 or so officers, applicants that showed up. So it's like, who wants to be a police officer during this time when you get incidences like that? You know, man, it's so, the disrespect to law enforcement officers are so wild that it is not talked about enough. Like how we expect to remain professional while being cursed at. Man, I wish I could play. I wish I had the audio to play for y'all. But they had this white guy. He was drunk. We dealing with him for domestic. And this man legit, like, very, very clear, very personal, called me the N-word, but like with the ER, like, and drug it out multiple times, like constantly, like repeated it in my face, made sure I heard it, which words don't hurt me, whatever. I done been called worse than that. I done been told everything about my mama, my wife, my kids. Words don't hurt me, whatever. It is what it is. But the fact that we supposed to stand in the face of people being cursed out like a dog, being called the lowest and dirtiest names, being told the most outrageous things that a human being could be told, and we supposed to take that on the chin. We supposed to not let that bother us. We not supposed to let our emotions get the best of us. But I have a simple thing, and here's my thing. If you won't tell me the same thing you're telling me just because I'm in this police uniform, if you won't see me as a random civilian in street clothes and come up to me and tell me those same things, then don't tell me that just because I'm in police uniform. Because again, this is a job. This is not who I am. So respect me as a human being first, then respect me as a police officer with the authority. And I don't even throw around the whole I'm in authority, I have the authority, because that's like kind of almost on a power trip. But it's like, you won't just go up to a random person and just call them a hard N-word with the ER. So why is it right for you to do it to a police officer just because I'm in this uniform? What else, man? Let me get to this story, and then I'm going to start wrapping this up. So 2019 in Victorville, California, a San Bernardino County Sheriff's deputy, and now Officer Megan McCarthy, or I think she's retired. So she was attacked by the suspect. She was responding to a domestic call where the mom made a call to 911 about her son. And I think the call notes from dispatch was relayed that a woman was on the phone saying, oh my God, get my son out of here. And that was all. So when the officer arrived, she sees the front door open, sees the male comes out, which is the suspect, and she see a woman who's holding a knife in her hand and still on the phone with dispatch. So assuming that the male was the suspect, the woman was the caller, she goes to start investigating. So the male had his fist clenched. You could just see that he was very, very angry. And she walks behind him, puts his hand small as his back, tells him to relax. It's okay. She asks what's going on. I'm going to just do a quick pat down for weapons. And then, bam, he assaulted her. So, granted, from what I watched her interview with Ryan Tillman, she was the only deputy on scene, and that's a common practice for them. Out here in my agency, domestics or calls like that, 2-man calls, they expect us to wait for backup. So to go in with 2 officers. So anyway, so she's doing her thing. Bam, suspect attacks her. He started assaulting her, and then she pulls out her gun at some point to shoot him because he's starting to overpower her. And he's actively, like, physically fighting her. Not just like wrestling, like he's fighting her, punching her in the face and stuff like that. Eventually, she falls on her back. Her gun is out. She fired a shot at him. She missed. He's on top of her, and now the fight is on for her weapon. All this was caught on cell phone video. Recently, they went to court for it, and he was facing charges of attempted murder and assault with a firearm on a police officer. All caught on video, and they found this man not guilty. Not guilty. He was found guilty of negligent discharge of a firearm, but they had a hung jury on battery against a peace officer, removal of an officer's firearm, and resisting arrest. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what law enforcement is facing. Criminals have more rights and are more protected than police officers. So in her interview, she kind of described, I think the question was asked to her, like, what, as she watched this video again, what was her feelings? And during this trial, she was like, she felt dehumanized. She felt like a villain. And essentially, I don't know if they told her this or just kind of what she felt, but she said eventually she wasn't worthy of being a victim of these crimes because she was a cop. Then the question was asked to her, like, what was your thoughts during this incident? She was like, instantly she thought of her daughter. Who's going to pick up my daughter from school? Who's going to be, like, she won't have a mom. And, you know, in law enforcement, when an officer dies in the line of duty, it's an honorable death. It's like, oh, yeah, you know, doing a good job. He was out there trying to save a life. But she said she questioned herself and was like, why am I about to die? Like, why am I in this position right now? For what? Like, I'm not protecting nobody. I'm just being attacked unprovoked, essentially just because I'm a police officer. And I'm about to lose my life over what? Reading this news story, the defense attorney said, I quote, it does look bad when you look at it at first glance, but if you don't ever look at it again or don't study it, certainly it looks like my client is shooting at the deputy. End quote. I guess later it came out that the guy suffers from schizophrenia. In the interview, she said that that's what they use as their leg to stand on is his mental health. Once he was found not guilty, they done something and said that actually he was fine and he doesn't suffer from mental issues and stuff like that. So it's like you playing the system over what? They had the same thing with Officer Middlebrook. To this day, I think now they finally got a trial date, but for years, I think it's coming up on 4 years since Officer Middlebrook passed. And that guy, they still was fighting the whole insanity charge. Is he sane to withstand trial? And it's like, but if a police officer do something, look at all these police officers that got in these controversial shootings and stuff like that. Man, they done went to trial, they got sentenced and put away within weeks of their incident that took place. And here we are, this happened in 2019, and this trial, this incident just got closed a couple months ago. But it's always when the police officer is the victim, things tend to prolong. It's just wild that this continues to happen. You know, I just want my listeners to do this for me. Put yourself in the shoes of the family of a police officer who gets notified that their loved one was shot or killed in the line of duty. How would you feel if someone told you, well, that's what they signed up for? No, I didn't tell them to be a cop. I signed up to help people, not to lose my life, not to get shot and killed for no reason, just because you don't like the police. Yes, I know it's a possibility in a job to get shot and killed in the line of duty. But if I wanted to go like sign up to get shot and killed, I would have went to the military, truth be told. But it's like citizens want want police officers to sympathize when something happens to a citizen. So George Floyd again, everybody's like, well, y'all need to show sympathy to the family, to the black community after this incident. But who is sympathizing with the families and officers of the 272 police officers that were shot in this year alone? Who are sympathizing with them? Yes, I know they have tons of police supporters out there, but again, as a whole, who are sympathizing with these people? I don't know how long ago this post was, but this post says that in 36 hours, 6 law enforcement officers were shot in the line of duty, and you had 0 news media coverage, 0 outrage by politicians, and 0 outrage by celebrities. So where are all the celebrities where's the NFL, the NBA, MLB, where they have end racism on their helmets, painted on their fields? Where's the outrage for the people that's protecting all y'all while y'all playing y'all sporting events, that's protecting the fans and spectators while y'all enjoying yourself and having a grand old time? Where are the celebrities and athletes outrage for the police officers who give them escorts and protect them while they out and about? That's what I want to know. Who is being mad with us besides the police department? So I'm gonna start wrapping this up, and I'm gonna do something a little different on the end. But before I do that, I want to leave y'all with this message. Positions are temporary, ranks and titles are limited, but the way you treat people will always be remembered. Ladies and gentlemen, that is all for another episode of the Speak On It podcast with K-Sam. Thank y'all again for tuning in.
Or dangerous or uncertain time for our profession, and still, there's a group of heroic men and women, each of you, who suit up every day and make a difference, and have made a choice to stand on that line between good and evil.
We talked about police officers being shot in this country.
Defendants charged with felon in possession of a weapon has doubled since 2018, and some say that's yet another reason violent crime is on the rise.
The sun's out, you think that it's just another November day.
But this individual has a lengthy history as a violent individual. He should have been in jail.
Each of you stood up and show up in communities across this great nation every minute of every day, without fail and without hesitation.
And a deadly overnight shooting in Myrtle Beach ended with 1 officer dead and another hurt.
It hurts to lose someone that is a protector of his family, a protector of his surrounding communities.
Went out there today and was serving his state, his community, the best way he knew how. Sir Jarrett leaves behind 3 small children, and he was expecting his 4th child this year.
The wicked flee when no one pursues, but the righteous are bold as a lion. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God.